All right, disclaimer. And yes, I am putting a disclaimer on this. Lots of people have asked me how I build these double barrel rifles and this and that. Do not do what I do. I do not encourage you, suggest to you, or advise you to build firearms. Take them to somebody that knows what they're doing. If you're going to do it, it is all on you. It has nothing to do with me. You're choosing to do it of your own free will. I do recommend that you get as much knowledge and understand how the firearms work before you attempt to do it. All right, now that I'm done with this disclaimer, on with the video. All right, so this is my lathe mill setup, and it's nothing fancy. It was bought at Harbor Freight 17, 18 years ago. Cost me $700. Right there is how you work the lathe. Over here, same thing. It's basically a drill press that you can put mill bits in. This is nothing sophisticated. It doesn't even do rifling or do threading of barrels. I'm going to explain how I do threading of barrels here in just a second. Tool I made for threading the inside of the chamber area of the shotgun barrels when I thread them. All it is, just a piece of metal turned down to fit snugly inside the barrels. Yes, it's rough. I don't care because I'm not using the barrels. I'm just using the chamber area of the barrels to make what's called a monoblock. The welds are shitty looking on it. They're just deep tack welds to hold it straight. And all they do is hold it straight. You get a 1/4 inch of threads going in the monoblock, and then you pull this out and you use a regular tap to finish it. All right, so the whole point of this video is, and I wanted to show you my little machine setup, because I had people saying that I must have a lot of money to do what I do, and I've had people say that, I had people tell me when I first started doing it that it was, before I built the first double barrel rifle, it wouldn't work. I have, back when Adams and Bennett barrels were at Midway, I would have less than $100 in a barrel. I'd have $200 in a barrel, and I'd buy a shotgun for $50 or $100. You got to buy a reamer to chamber it, this and that. I was building back when I built my first one 18 years ago, and I bought that machine just to build a double barrel rifle because I couldn't afford one. The cheapest one is 10 grand that I've ever seen. And if you want a really good Holland and Holland, you're talking 6 figures. They want half up front, the other half when it's done. And this was 10 years ago. It was a 5-year wait before you would actually get the rifle. I never could afford anything like that. I couldn't afford a $5,000 rifle, let alone a $10,000 rifle. So I decided to do it myself. I was showing you this. All I did, I chucked this in the lathe. I cut a piece of rifle barrel, like this, and I chucked this into a drill, or no, actually I didn't. I put this in there, made sure this was cut flat in my lathe. Then I chucked this in the lathe. I made sure this end was cut flat when I made this piece on the lathe. Then what I did is I chucked it into the lathe, and I turned down this center here to what I needed to make sure it was, I tack welded. I pushed it up against this was in the lathe. This was pushed up against the tap. The live center was right here. I pushed it up against it to where it was nice and snug, and I tack welded it really deep in between the flutes of the tap. And then while I had it chucked in there, I turned this to make sure that this was all square, so that this is completely square. This tool cost me, the tap was probably 20 bucks at the hardware store. This was scrap barrel that was shot out. It was no good. An hour's worth of time, I made a tool that makes sure that the tap goes in straight when I thread what they call the monoblock, which is the chamber area of the shotgun barrels. This stuff can be done inexpensively. You can build some really cool things. That lathe and mill setup is cheap as hell. It's Harbor Freight. But I built a 1911 off an 80% receiver, cut the rails on there, cut it out for a ramped barrel, the frame out for a ramped barrel. I built 3 double barrel rifles. I'm going on the 4th one right now because I like doing this stuff. I've built AK pistols on that. Bought a actual pistol receiver, AK pistol receiver, and I turned the barrel down on that machine right there and made a 10-inch barrel. Then I cut the gas tube down, did everything on that machine, and built a Draco basically a long time ago before I even seen them come out on the market. This book right here, it is by W. Ellis Brown, Building Double Rifles on Shotgun Action, 2nd edition. He doesn't tell you how to do it in this book, but there's lots of pictures, and he gives you enough information where if you research it, you can do it yourself. All through this book, I've got notes written down. Right there, I've got information written down for different loads and stuff. Throughout the book, in the margins, I've got notes written down where I thought things were important. The fact is, you can build really cool stuff that you normally couldn't afford and do it cheaply but safely if you're willing to take the time to do the research. I was surfing the internet trying to figure out some way of building a double barrel rifle because I knew I could never afford one, and I ran across a post where a guy had mentioned W. Ellis Brown and that he was building double barrel rifles on Shotgun Actions, and they had wrote a book, typed in the name of the book on the internet, found the book. The book cost me, I want to say back then it was around 80 bucks. Best 80 bucks I ever spent. A lot of stuff in here to tell you how to do it safely. I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything. When you start playing around with guns and pressures and stuff like that, that's dangerous. You can really hurt yourself, hurt somebody else. But if you do the research and figure out how to do it safely and right, it can be a lot of fun. I had seen a guy literally had a single shot shotgun. And the first double barrel rifle I built the same way this guy did this, but he had a single shot shotgun. I believe it was a 12 gauge, might have been a 16 gauge. And met the guy, I think I was rabbit hunting or something. He was hunting with the 12 gauge. And got to talking. When we got back to truck, he opened his, because we just decided to rabbit hunt together. We got back to his truck. He opened up his gun case, and there's like 6 barrels in there. And I'm like, what's that? He was like, oh, them are my rifle barrels. He had it was an old Topper 12 gauge. He had, I believe it was a 45-70 barrel in there, a 30-30 barrel in there, and some other ones. And what he had done is he had taken a wood lathe, didn't have anything for actual specifics, but he had chucked these metal rifle barrels in a wood lathe. And with a file and a set of calipers, he kept filing them until they slid down the 12 gauge barrel or 16 gauge. It might have been 12 gauge shotgun, but he had slid made sleeves that slid down in these barrels, and they stopped in there just perfect. and he could shoot shotgun, and it was at least 4, but I think there was 6 rifle barrels in there, but a bunch of different rifle calibers. He said he just got the idea and did it. The barrels were barrels that I don't know where he picked them up, but he had rifle barrels that slid down inside the shotgun barrels and made sleeves. My first double barrel rifle was an 8mm Mauser because I had Mauser takeoff barrels from building bolt action rifles, and I built a 8mm Mauser double barrel rifle. Well, it was a shotgun with rifle sleeves in it, and it wasn't happy. It looked like a shotgun that somebody dropped sleeves in, and then you could push the sleeves out and change them. But anyway, it just wasn't a real double barrel rifle, and I don't do them. I build actual rifles. The point of the matter is I had people telling me in the comments. Well, first thing, I had a lot of people ask me, sending me emails asking me how to do it. I'm not going to tell you how to do it because realistically, if you get hurt, I don't want to be responsible. I'm not recommending you do it. I'm not telling you can do it. I'm telling you if you're going to attempt to do it, make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure you understand, axial pressures. Your barrels are held in the center between 2 barrels. When you shoot the right or the left, it wants to, under recoil, it wants to twist. And that's axle torque. And it wants to torque open. So you got to use a shotgun that's strong enough for the intended caliber you want to do. This guy, W. Ellis Brown, in his book explains all that stuff. I didn't do mine exactly like he did his. I did my own thing. Every one of these that I've ever built, they get strapped down to a bench and they get a couple proof loads, which is 1.5 times what factory pressure load is. They get shot. I talked about that. I look for cracks, for stress. I measure to make sure nothing's stretched or nothing else. And like that one that I showed you guys I'm working on, that's going to be a black powder express. We're going to shoot nitro loads through it to proof test it. And if it blows up, I don't care. I'll pull the barrels out of there because it's not going to hurt the barrels. What's going to happen is it's going to blow apart, break the action apart. And if that happens, I've got 5 more shotguns that are way bigger and beefier and stronger than that one to build on. And I'll use them barrels in a different one, and I'll make it a 450 Nitro Express. But if it holds up to the proof testing, that'll be a black powder express loaded with black powder only gun. But I get all these people saying the average man cannot do it. The average man cannot afford it. If you were only going to build one, you could take the monoblock, the chamber section of shotgun barrels, to a machine shop. Take your rifle barrels to a machine shop and probably have them threaded for a couple $100 and fitted. You're still going to be under $1,000 in building one. You're never going to buy one that cheap. Save some money. I mean, that's what I do. I save money to do these projects. I've been working on this one for a year and a half. Some of that is I get too many projects on my plate. Some of that is there's some stuff that, like the front sight, the rear sight, stuff that I'm too lazy to make that I have to buy. So it costs money. Chamber reamer. When I built the last 450, I was like, well, I don't think I'll ever need this again. I sold the chamber reamer because I didn't plan on ever selling the gun, but I just got offered more money than I could turn down for it. So realistically, now I got to buy a chamber reamer. I mean, there's just stuff like that. This time I'll just hang on to the chamber reamer because I don't see no sense in getting rid of a tool that, even though I think I'll probably never need it again, I may end up using again. I'm going to have to cut this video off short. I have a ton of stuff I have to get done today. I just wanted to show you guys that stuff, though. This book, this tool I made, same thing. with the rifle barrels. I can't thread the rifle barrels. I made a tool that goes into a drill chuck that goes into the tailstock of that lathe. And it is threaded to the same thread and pitch as that. It slides into the bore of the rifle barrel where the chamber is going to be, about that far. And then it's threaded. I thread the die on it. I chuck it into the drill head instead of the live center on the tailstock. I start turning the die until it gets to the rifle barrels, and then as I turn the die, I turn the tailstock so that it's pushing the die in and holding it square to the rifle barrels. And then once I get 4, 5, 6 threads and I know it's not going to go crooked, then I can just keep turning it and I don't have to mess around. There's ways to build something if you want to build it. You have to figure it out, and you have to be safe about it. But when people tell me, well, I can't afford that. If you can afford an AR-15, you can afford to build one of them. Whether you do the machining yourself or whether you have somebody else do it. If you want to save your money, you can buy the stuff to make your own tools and do it yourself. Like I said, there was a guy that did it with a wood lathe. Not sure exactly how he chucked it up in there, but he told me he did it on his wood lathe with a file. I did, because mine didn't thread, I did my first one where I sleeved the barrels on that machine right there with a file to make the sleeves that slid down into the shotgun barrels. So, I mean, it can absolutely be done, and done cheaply and done safely. Headspace is always something you really, really, really want to know what the hell you're doing and make sure you do it right, because headspace, no matter how good a gun is built and how strong it is, if the headspace is bad, it can blow up in your face. But for people sending me emails, I'm an idiot. Don't do what I do. But if you're going to do it, make sure you know what you're doing before you do it. Make sure you're safe about it when you're test firing it and that. But a lot of people ask me where I learned how to do it. I got a good majority of the information through, and I will read it to you one more time. W. Ellis Brown, Building Double Rifles on Shotgun Actions, 2nd edition. Right there. This book gave me enough information where, with just a little bit of research, you can figure out the rest. And that's how I'm going to leave it for you guys. So, anyway, video wasn't supposed to be that long, but you can absolutely do anything. If you want to set your mind to it, there's nothing in this world you can't do. You may not have it today, and you may not have it tomorrow. You may have to save. You may have to educate yourself to learn how to do it. But anything can be accomplished by anybody. You just have to get off your ass, excuse my language, do your research, maybe spend a few bucks, and do it. And you're going to mess up. Things are going to go wrong. I've wrecked barrels because I got in a hurry. I've wrecked the action because I got in a hurry. Things happen. You just learn from them and don't make the same mistake. But anyway, I want to thank everybody that took the time, because I got a ton of emails on that double barrel rifle build. And I want to thank you for the kind words. I want to thank you for the emails, but I'm not a gunsmith. I don't work on other people's guns. I don't build guns for people. There's all kinds of laws involved in that, and liability. If I do machine work for you, you don't assemble it, right? Blow yourself up. I don't want to be responsible. But that's how you learn how to do it. Lots of time and research. And like I said, it can be done with a minimal of tools. You just got to think about it. Look at the problem you have, and then come up with a solution. And don't get in a hurry. Take your time. But I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.